Hello, everyone. I believe that slowly we are getting people onto our workshop. I hope you can hear me. Right. So I think without further ado, we can start the workshop. So today we are trying to discuss and share some of our research findings. So this workshop is titled Servant Leadership in Action from the Heart of the Community. And this is a capacity building workshop based on the findings of the participatory action research project, which is titled Servant Leadership in Action, which was designed and developed by myself, Janith Perera, and also Dr. Vedabhyas Kundu, together with three young researchers, Karan Hapuch Tervarapalli, Aaliyah Sharplin, and Freya Jhugroo. So today, we would like to share with you some of the insights from this workshop. So between April and September 2025, Global Peace Let's Talk, a not-for-profit agency in the United Kingdom, we coordinated this participatory action research project alongside the Training of Trainers program in nonviolent communication and servant leadership. And what we wanted to do is to bring together diverse people from different backgrounds to co-create how servant leadership is practiced in real-world community settings, particularly in relation to peace building and development. So the research actually culminated in the analysis of 31 community leaders from countries including Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Burundi, Pakistan, Mexico, Ethiopia, DR Congo, Ghana, Uganda, and the United States. So you can see that our community leaders who we interviewed came from diverse contexts around the world. However, they all had a common commitment, and that is to serve humanity, build peace, and nurture prosperity. And what we understood is that their stories reveal us servant leadership is not merely a theoretical model, it's a lived reality that empowers communities, fosters resilience, and creates spaces for healing and hope. So, to begin with, the two wonderful concepts, servant leadership and nonviolent communication, as we promised in this workshop. The term servant leadership was originally coined by Robert K. Greenleaf, and he's an American leadership scholar. And he actually was inspired by the Eastern traditions. And he actually believed that if you want to make a difference, you need to actually engage with the people that you are working with. And it appears to be a paradox because servant and leader, they are not going, together, because servant, traditionally we think servant is a person to help, not to lead. But that approach, the paradoxical approach itself, gives you an understanding that servant leadership is actually a leader is trying to serve before trying to lead. Now, when our Greenleaf was delivering some workshops, he understood that, there was so much disparity, there was so much problems with leadership, and he understood that leadership was not something that people were properly understanding at that time. So he was actually delivering a lecture at Prescott, and on the way back, he was thinking about what is this servant, what is this leadership, what should leadership be like? And then he realized that leaders should all lead by serving each other. True servants, we know, operate out of love. True leaders should similarly seek to serve those who are being led. So people who serve are, in fact, leaders and followers. So this one paradoxical phrase seemed to sum up the goal of Greenleaf's entire career: to lead through service, encourage people and institutions to serve first. In fact, as mentioned in his biography written by Frick, in spite of all his personal foibles and internal contradictions, the underlying theme of Greenleaf's whole life was to think about being of service to others. So the concept of servant leadership is very important because we need young people to think, if you want to lead, it's not about power, it's not about authority, it's not about control. It starts with the natural desire to serve other. And when you start your leadership journey, as the main theme of this conference, leading with compassion, we need to think that a leader should be a person who actually chooses to lead after deciding to serve first. So you understand that the key difference is that the servant leader's focus is on meeting the others' highest priority needs. You focus on becoming a leader because you want to serve. So in this model, servant leaders are those who prioritize the needs and the well-being of the followers. They want to support the growth and development of the followers and want to challenge their employees or their followers to actually do better. How? Ensuring that their well-being is met, ensuring that the greater good is focused. So in that sense, the followers become healthier, happier, more engaged, and more productive. So there are 10 main servant leadership characteristics. And in our research project, also, we found that these leadership traits are very important. For example, awareness. When it comes to awareness, servant leaders need to be aware of themselves as well as their followers. The strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, you are aware. Servant leaders practice listening, something that we found very interesting in our research, and we are prepared to give you several examples. Deep listening, active listening, we'll be discussing more. Empathy, to be able to understand the pain, the suffering of other people like your own. Foresight, to visualize the future, to be a visionary leader. Conceptualization, to understand how things happen in the society and to lead with wisdom. Persuasion, without force, but with convincing inspiration. Community building, stewardship, or understanding that leadership is a responsibility, not a right, and how leadership can be used for healing and the commitment to the growth of the people. So, from our research project, we understood that some of these qualities, such as empathy, commitment to the growth of the people, community building, listening, and healing, are of paramount importance. And in our research, we identified there are some other qualities, such as trust, resilience, integrity. Although this is not discussed in current literature, our research was able to bring forth this forward. And also, we realized that servant leadership is very fluid. Leadership needs to be like water. You should be able to change over time adapt based on the obstacles, challenges. So servant leadership is not a set framework. It's a flexible framework where you can change, evolve. And we found several examples, such as in faith-based leadership, education-based leadership. And we also found that today, servant leadership is influencing the most authoritarian, even the rigid structures in society. So if I give you few quick case studies from our research, we found that leadership starts from within, especially based on active listening and empathy. For example, a case study is from the Girau community of Nigeria, where Alhaj Abdul Muhammad Lawal, he clearly brought out this idea that leadership is actually about listening to the deeply to the community concerns, building trust through relational engagement, and reducing crime and boosting youth participation via mentorship and training. In other parts of of our research, we identified that servant leadership particularly focused on young people because of the future. For example, Daniel Owuzu Baha in Ghana, Naushi Dubai in Pakistan, we realized that they were trying to use education to equip youth for leadership roles and develop more inclusive educational practices. We also understood that servant leadership is emerging in the unexpected contexts, such as the military, because when you say military, we think of command, hierarchy, but if you go to Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, we understood that he's redefining military leadership through public service, promoting soft power, dialogue, inclusion, community trust, and trying to use people-centered approaches. So even within rigid institutions, servant leadership is fostering peace, justice, and development through humility and stewardship. So I think these are some of the findings of our research which can inspire you. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Vedabhyas Kundu, another principal investigator, to talk about nonviolent communication and inspire you. Over to you, Dr. Kundu.
Thank you, Janith. Am I audible? Am I audible properly?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. What Janith had introduced all of you to this interesting study that we all were able to do as part of the Global Peace Let's Talk. The essence of servant leadership and the importance of non-violent communication in the whole process of being a servant leader. And here, let me introduce you to this whole world of non-violent communication. You see, I've been working in this area for now almost a decade and trying to, reach out to people from all walks of life, whether children, whether youth, even I have been conducting training for judges and police officers and so many others. One of the important things that I realized in the course of this whole exercise, that non-violent communication is, essentially a holistic communication approach, and the central focus of it is the idea of human interconnectedness. Why human interconnectedness? Because when we realize that we are dependent on each other, we are interconnected to each other, then our communication parameters, how we communicate to others, really changes. If we are not realizing the essence of our interconnectedness, we would become possibly in some way or the other aggressive and so on and so forth. Why I'm saying holistic communication? Because non-violent communication entails not only the communication between human to human, but also our symbolic communication with the nature and all other living beings, and it is very important in today's world. A situation of great environmental degradation, destruction of habitat, so on and so forth. Also, when we are talking of nonviolent communication, it starts from our thoughts. That is the primary form of communication, our thoughts and ideas. Also, it encompasses our intrapersonal communication, our self-talk, our inner interactions, our imagined interactions, sorry, inner dialogues, so on and so forth. Then our interpersonal communication ecosystems in our society. uh, these are all which entails non-violent communication. Also, what is important is that if there is a dysfunctional or there is a breakdown of communication, then there is an issue, then there is a problem. Next slide, please. In the context of in the context of what we are seeing across the world, rise of hate speech, hate narratives, right from the local level, right from the individual level, I should say, because most of us are in trouble, in various kind of turmoil. We are having issues of anxiety, stress, and all, so that entails our inner communication is dysfunctional. Also, in our families, in our institutions, in communities, and of course at a global level, there is so much of communication, use of the social media. So that's why here we are talking or underlining the essence of non-violent communication literacy. I had the chance of working with a very senior Ghanaian here in India, and he had underlined the essence of non-violent communication literacy as an important 21st century skill. Nonviolent communication literacy entails not only the critical understanding of how we need to use communication for reaching out and communication from a pluralistic perspective, it also entails our critical use and understanding of nonviolence in all our speech, action, and also, uh, basically non-violent communication, and it is written out here. It also entails a deep understanding of the art and science of non-violence and its centrality in all its action. As I said, it has to start right from our thoughts and ideas, and that's very important because in the world that we are living in, with so much of influence of the social media, so much of, as I said, the essence, rise of hate narratives, this form of communication has to be nurtured right from the young age. Next slide, please. Now, we are going to talk, as I said, it entails all form, whether verbal, non-verbal, our thoughts and ideas. I have already covered that. Uh, Also, what is important is that when we are talking of non-violent communication, whether in some way or the other, we can get rid of our preconceived notions, that is, stereotypes. Because when we are stereotyping, then there is a possibility that when we are engaging with a group or an individual with whom we have stereotypes, our communication becomes dysfunctional, or there is a toxic communication. Also, friends, we are in many ways attuned to think in terms of moralistic judgments, and they could be our own construction. So when we become very judgmental, that brings a barrier to the way we communicate or contributes to a toxic communication ecosystem. So then we come, also, we need to, as I said right at the beginning, that it entails the art and science of non-violence and how it can be integrated in our communicative practices. Because what is our goal? Our goal, whether within our inner self, whether in our families or institutions, is to have a very harmonious, a healthy communication ecosystem. How we can contribute to emotional bridge building, that is the key, and that is what is needed. Next slide, please. So as we move forward, as part of it, just a little bit of history of nonviolent communication. It is has a roots in all different cultures and traditions across the world. For example, the Buddhist tradition, or when we are talking of the Indian context, it is the Vedic tradition. Whether if we are looking at the African context, Ubuntu as a source of nonviolent communication. In the modern times, it was expanded and promoted by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg and his famous book, The Language of Life. Also, in the contemporary world, one of the greatest proponents of nonviolent communication has been Mahatma Gandhi, and how he used his tools and strategies of nonviolent communication to reach out not only the masses in India but all across the world. And we have a lot to learn from his approach of nonviolent communication. And as we have pointed out, it is the performance of ahimsa in speech, and that ensures that the dialogue itself remains an act of ethical service. He's talking of reaching out to the masses, heart to heart communication. That is the goal. How we can compassion. In fact, here we have really pointed out the five pillars of Gandhian nonviolence, which I sincerely feel are the foundational architecture of nonviolent communication. Respect, and when we have respect, it leads to greater understanding, and when we have greater understanding, it leads to greater acceptance, then positive appreciation and compassion. These five pillars, when we integrate in our communicative efforts, it contributes a lot to a very positive and healthy and harmonious communicative ecosystem. Next, please. So now we come to this whole study. And before that, this important slide is very important, because when we are thinking of servant leadership, and our friend Janith has beautifully put the different characteristics of servant leadership. So for a servant leader, what is the communication? What is going to be her or his tool and strategy of communication? That is most important. And that we believe that when we integrate the ideas and the philosophy of nonviolent communication as a part of servant leadership, as a servant leader using these strategies, they will be more effective in community work. They will be more effective in the institutions they are in. So quickly, I will go through it. Importance of healthy communication ecosystem, as I have been underlining. And when we are talking of non-violent communication for a servant leader, it entails deep and compassionate listening skills. It leads to emotional bridge building, even if there are differences. The servant leader will try to, gel people together, bring them together. This is emotional bridge building. The non-judgmental, very, very important. Deep engagement, respect for human dignity, heart-to-heart communication, and healing over command and control. Next, please. We now move to our case studies, our research projects. So, some of the key themes that we have been able to, flag off from this study, a very, very extensive study that Janith pointed out, that we could do. The importance of deep listening for listeners. That was something very important that came up. Guidepost. The importance of strategic patience, restraint. It's so very important in today's world. Patience. Many of us don't have the patience to listen to others, patience to act, and that creates problem. And then importance of restraint, self-restraint, self-discipline, inner discipline, very important. These are all important points. And of course, collaborative problem solving, how we can collaborate and work together in the community for solving many of these issues. And so our servant leaders, when they go to the community, they use this non-violent communication ecosystem to ensure or to contribute to collaborative problem solving. Next, please. So some of the case studies I would quickly like to share. Chief Johnson Amino, Kenya. He was, this was, what he did was, there was a issue with the traders, and he engaged the traders in almost 3 hours long dialogue. That's very important. And what are the tools he used? He used deep listening skills, openness and flexibility extremely important part of communication, because in a conflict situation there can be a if we are not open and flexible, then there will be a breakdown in communication. There cannot be any communication, or there will be toxic communication. Then non-judgmental enhancement of personhood and trust building. Alahi Abdul Muhammad Lawal, multiple dialogues he used for to prevent mob violence. Here, the key were importance of self-restraint and the use the principles of non-violence. So, friends, in fact, if you see, these are all different dimensions of non-violent communication, with the servant leaders, community leaders have been using to reach out to people in the community, even in difficult situations. Like Jhugroo Nuru Muhammad, he used cooperations, reciprocity, and direct communication to create a safe space for community members. So when in any kind of conflict situations, actually, when the servant leader is using the tools and strategies of non-violent communication, they are actually creating a safe space for mediation, safe space for negotiation, and that is the key. Next, please. So now we are coming towards the end of this non-violent communication section, and the last two, Helen Akpan, who had established some of this exclusive, interesting community arts program, where she used inclusive language, nurtured dialogue, and creative facilitations. And David Ekenem, you see here how performance use of non-violent communication in performances in art and creativity to nurture dialogue. That's a beautiful case study that we could find. And then, of course, David Ekenem, who specialized in facilitative communication, inclusive dialogue, and conflict resolution, which I told earlier, the role of non-violent communication in conflict resolution and conflict transformation. Because when you are using non-violent communication, you are actually reframing the negative communication to positive communication. Uh, Next, I think now our next friend would take over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kundu.
Karen.
So now
Yeah.
we would like to move on to some specific case studies. We have selected 3 case studies to give you some insights. So the first one will be actually has been pre-recorded for you by Freya Jhugroo. So we will listen to the case of Dr. Hala in Minawi.
My name is Freya, and I'll be presenting our first case study. So I will be talking about servant leader Dr. Haller, encapsulate leadership and how she treats others. It's the title and it's about being empathetic. So let's go on to her background. So Dr. Haller was born in Syria, Damascus, and relocated with her family to Dubai in 1991. This was very formative for her because she saw people from different backgrounds and groups coexisting, and this has shaped her general attitude. Her mother also served as a brilliant role model for her, teaching her kindness, generosity, and optimism. She also shares that her mother focused on complimenting and bringing up that Dr. Haller was always very unique, and that was always very important to her. She has worked as a university professor and a government consultant and published 9 books during her leadership journey. So, her leadership style. Dr. Haller discusses the importance of self-confidence, empathy, self-respect, responsibility, and generosity in leadership, including finding one's purpose. She shares that her passion for teaching and helping others succeed brings her joy when she sees the smiles of achievement on her students' faces. In fact, Dr. Haller gives out reading materials for free, including books, to her students and those who are just generally interested in the topic at hand, so that she can give out her knowledge to as many people as possible. She uses a non-judgmental approach when dealing with problems in her community. This leadership style has yielded exponential results, uniting conflicting parties, families, and the community as a whole. So, one example of her brilliance as a leader is that one time she saw someone who was invigilating an exam who had fallen asleep. Other people's reaction to this was to laugh and find it humorous, but instead she called for emergency medical assistance. This act of kindness helped the supervisor avoid a stroke as she was battling with a medical condition unknown to everybody. This emphasizes the importance of showing compassion and understanding towards others. Also important to note is that her leadership style has evolved over time. Dr. Haller used to find it challenging to work in groups because most people would want her to take their time to meet deadlines, but she wanted to be very efficient. Over time, she has learned how to deal with this and enhance her team working and collaboration skills by understanding the different personalities in the community. She now provides an avenue of openness and acceptance, which aims at capturing every individual's capacity and unique capability. She supports them, and they have learned to work together, supporting each team member to achieve personal and community goals. Thank you very much for listening. I will now pass over to my colleagues who will bring up my discussion questions.
Yes, so we'll have these questions. I will be posting them in the chat. Um, People who are listening to it could answer it, and we'll discuss it at the last. Moving forward, we will go to the second case study of our our research work. So today we are exploring on an one of the expectational example of a servant leadership is Dr. Jhugroo Nuru Mohammed, and he is the founder of Auramba community in Ethiopia. So his life is a testament to the power of leading from among the people, and generally in Nuru's life, his journey, he it began in the Ethiopian countryside where he witnessed a deep social injustices. He saw the mistreatment of women and children and hostility towards those of different religions. And this first-hand experiences of cruelty compelled him to rebel against the comfort of his family's farm and pursue the path of radical acceptance and change. He sacrificed his own comfort and endured imprisonment and exile to fight against these social inequalities. So, moving on towards the next uh, about his leadership style, about how leading from among the Abra Amba community. Dr. Nuru's leadership style is always defined by by listening first and not leading from authority. So he embodies the idea that leadership is not a title, but it's a way of life. And he always has the conflict resolutions. While conflict arises, he always meditates peacefully, and by patiently encouraging one open discussions of ideas rather than demanding or making them imposing a solution. So he guides his guiding philosophy is always, he says that I believe in discussion to pursue important ideas and to impart my own ideas to fuel positive change. So that is his ideal philosophy for guiding. And the sacrifice he has done is that his community is selfless. He has always prioritized the struggles and well-being of his all 500 followers above his own. And his core principle was to approach in the build of three pillars. Those are teaching, advising, and directing. So he directs the community with honesty, cooperation, and transparency. And moving on to the next slide, we'll see how he has found the Aura Amba community. It is a democratic and self governing community. And to believe it is a living testament of his vision of equality and peace. And this guiding principle, which is a profound one, where he says, treat others the way you want to be treated. uh, we can see this works his principle towards in very other aspects in core values such as gender equality, where women and men are treated as equals in the work and governance. In the social welfare aspects, there is a deep commitment to the caring of the most vulnerables. Those are the elderly people in the society or in the community they are in, and those who are unable to work because of the health problems. And when we see to the democratic governance, that it is crucial, the crucial decisions are made through the community-wide votes. Those are confirmed only when everybody is okay with it and everyone in the community is done voting for it. And so, despite all these numerous hurdles and hostility from the neighborhood villages, and his vision for this humorous Ethiopian community only grew stronger. So, to take away from this, the legacy, the next slide, Dr. Nuru influences over. Next slide, please. Dr. Nuru influences over extends beyond Avramba, his community. He actively shares his lesson and in nonviolent communication and leadership, including lecturing in his one of the universities called Vedabhyas universities, and his legacies have been studied widely. And his final lessons from all the aspiring leaders is the power of sharing principles and values for mutual respect, peace, and a humanistic approach to development. So, in closing, Dr. Nuru shows us that empathy, listening, and selfless commitment are the true tools of impactful leaders capable of creating lasting positive social change. So, these are the further discussion questions. I'll be posting them in the chat. We all will discuss it at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to Aaliyah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. So I'm going to share a case study on Shreen Abdul Soro, who is an exceptional servant leader in Sri Lanka. If I could have the second slide. So I'd like to begin by sharing the story of Shreen, who is a leader whose work spans across decades. She's the co-founder of the Mano Women's Development Federation, the multi-ethnic Women's Action Network and the Women's Organisation for Working Disabilities, as well as a supporter of many other women's foundations and workers' foundations in Sri Lanka. One of the reasons that we picked her as a servant leader for this presentation is because she truly embodies what a servant leader is through her exceptional example of empathy, healing, and commitment to the growth of others, which makes up a servant leader. I would also like to mention as well that she embodies another trait that is often undervalued, which is her resilience and her moral courage. So we can have the next slide. I would like to just go briefly over her approach to leadership and influencing change in her community, which is a nationwide effort. So she takes a two-layered approach. On the ground grassroots level, she tries to influence change in culture and social contexts by making grassroots initiatives that empower women through economic freedom, and they're allowing them the ability to act on their own. She also tries to lead from among them by leading by example. So one example that she shared with us was that she applied to be a higher authority within her local community, which is a Kwadi. She was rejected many times, and yet she still pursued it. She still continues to aspire to become that role simply because she knows that other women will watch her and also follow in her footsteps. And as a result, on a wider national level, she's able to influence policies through the network that she's established and through the women that she's inspired. One of those policies is the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, which still allows child marriage in Sri Lanka. It's one of the things that she continues to pursue and campaign against, as well as at the same time uniting thousands of women across the nation and obviously the globe to influence change and inspire other women to step up. If I can have the next slide. One of the aspects that I find really inspiring about Shireen is her family history. She is a refugee who fled to Colombo when she was just a child, and she faced a lot of prejudice because of where she came from, because of the language she spoke. So she spoke Tamil, which was the language of the LTTE, who had been the ones to displace her and her family. And often she was labelled by her peers as a tiger, which was a term associated with the group, the LTTE. Despite this, her and her father worked to support their local community, which was ethnically diverse. It was that example that then she followed, and the juxtaposition of these experiences have formed a morally courageous woman who questioned what identity really is, whether that means it's your language, your religion, your ethnicity. She didn't see a single set of characteristics as a defining way to measure people's worth. If I could have the next slide. So it's these aspects of her childhood and later education that made her the servant leader today. The result was a leader who's set upon supporting women of all religions and ethnicities, challenging the confines and identity forced upon her at a young age and the confines forced upon others as well. Her experiences have strengthened her aptitude for an empathetic approach, which is so crucial in instilling trust and reliability among the community which she serves. Despite facing resistance, despite being rejected from the position she's applied for so many times, she continues to challenge the norm and exemplifies the resilience of these women, inspiring others to do the same. And this isn't limited to just women, it is men as well. Can I have the next slide? So how does she go about influencing this change? Servant leaders, we found, don't separate themselves from their followers. They lead from among them. Shireen emphasizes that change begins with the individual. So she embodies the change that she wants to see in others, because she doesn't believe she can ask others to act in a certain way until she knows herself that she's confident enough to do that and embrace that lifestyle. This very much shows her empathy, and she's focused upon opening a dialogue with the women she seeks to support, and even that is with people of different faiths, different religion, beliefs that don't always align with her own. And in doing so, a trust is created between these different groups of people. Her emotional intelligence, which we found is a very common trait of servant leaders and a really crucial trait, is what appeals to those that she leads. An example is that she refused to advise women who were struggling with abuse to seek divorce unless she herself would be able to take that step in their position, recognizing that the culture and economic strains many women face limit them in their options. So she doesn't take a one-size-fits-all approach to change, and that really appeals to many. These are the discussion questions I'm going to pop in the chat in a second. If you could feel free to reply in the chat with your ideas and how you feel about Shireen and just servant leadership in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaliyah. I hope you can hear me. Right. So in the meantime, I would like to move on to the conclusion in the interest of time. And I would like the viewers to share their insights in the chat so that we can understand what are the lessons you kind of took from this capacity building workshop. So what have we learned today? We have learned today that servant leadership and nonviolent communication are powerful tools for change, and these approaches together can help us build trust, solve problems together, and create lasting peace. We understood that leaders who listen first and serve with empathy, they make the biggest impact than leaders who command or control. And why does this matter, especially at this Global Youth Conference? Because youth are not just the future, we are the present. So when we lead with emotional intelligence, we shape communities that are inclusive, resilient, and hopeful. And real leadership is not about control. It is about connection, compassion, and courage. And where have we learned this from? We have learned this from servant leadership. We have learned this from nonviolent communication, which is the communicative approach of servant leaders. So if you want to make change, I think you need to practice deep listening, where you understand before responding. You lead with empathy. You support others, especially those who feel unheard. You use education to grow your skills and help others grow. And you also can challenge old systems, create new ways that can work for your community if the current system does not work. So I would like to invite you to put servant leadership and and nonviolent communication at the heart of youth-led efforts for change. And that will help us together to build a future, a world that is fairer, kinder, and more united. So thank you so much. We would like your reflections and comments, anything that you took from this session, or any questions you have in the chat box, or if you can unmute, you can unmute and talk to us as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Should we wait for a few minutes or?
Yes, I think this platform is a little bit complicated. So let's see if somebody puts in a question or anything in the chat.
Yeah.
I think there's another session happening in another 3-4 minutes. So if not,
Okay.
we can leave in another 3-4 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Aaliyah, Dr. Kundu, can you switch on your camera so that we can take a photo? I'm not sure whether Dr. No.
Yeah, I could not.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So thank you so much then.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.